All right, so today we're diving into ancient Rome, getting to know Mars.
Yes.
And I know what you're thinking, but we're not talking about the planet. It's
Okay.
all about the god, this time the Roman god of war.
Okay.
And honestly, the stuff you sent over about him, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
I'm ready to unpack it all.
Well, what most people don't realize about Mars is there's way more to him than just being this warrior god.
Yeah.
He really embodies like this very Roman way of thinking about power.
What do you mean?
So it's not just brute force with them. It's
Okay.
strength is about using what you got to create stability.
Mm-hmm.
And not just where you'd expect it either. Like we're talking agriculture.
That's what's blowing my mind. Before we even get to battlefields and all that,
Yeah.
the source you shared, it talks about Mars and agriculture. Like, his roots are in agriculture.
Exactly.
You don't picture that.
No.
It's not the first thing that comes to mind.
For the Romans, it was almost like they couldn't separate military power from having a ton of food, abundance.
Really?
They were intertwined. A strong military meant good harvests.
Okay.
They actually even had a word for it, this connection.
What's
That
that?
one.
Rust. Rust, like on a sword. What's that have to do with, like, growing stuff?
That's the thing, right? Rust worked on both.
Wow.
It meant the corrosion that could mess up your weapons and the blight that could take out your crops.
So it's like whether it's your armor or your fields, you got to protect it.
Security, exactly.
Yes.
It's all connected.
And there's this group, the Arvel brothers, right?
Yes.
They're in one of these sources, and they're a big part of this whole military-agriculture connection.
Huge. They were these priests,
Mhm.
and they did these rituals, special ones, all for Mars,
Okay.
asking for his protection over their fields. And these weren't just like, oh yeah, let's ask Mars real quick.
Right.
This was serious business for them.
So they're out there in the fields, like, doing interpretive dance for the god of war.
It seems odd to us.
It's not exactly what you think of when you picture ancient Rome.
Right, right. But to them, making sure the harvest went well,
Yeah.
that was just as important as any battle.
Wow.
And the rituals, as weird as they seem now, that was how they connected with Mars.
I guess if you really think about it, it makes sense.
It does.
Appeasing him, good harvest, happy Roman state. It all tracks.
Exactly. It wasn't just about being strong. It was about being stable,
Right.
successful, all of it.
Mhm.
And that's where Mars comes in.
And speaking of strength, we can't talk about Mars without talking about, well, war.
Of course.
He's the protector of Rome.
Right.
But it all ties back to this crazy story, the founding of Rome.
You're talking about Romulus and Remus.
Mm.
Those twins raised by a wolf.
The one and only. Founders of Rome. But get this,
It's that.
their dad, it's Mars.
Yeah.
Can you believe that?
It's a wild story. And it's
Mhm.
crucial because it links Mars directly to Rome's origin story.
Totally. I mean, the myth says he had an affair with Rhea Silvia, right? And she
does.
was a Vestal virgin. And for those of us who don't know Roman religion inside and out, Vestal virgins, they weren't supposed to.
Right. They took a vow of chastity.
It was a big deal.
Huge. Their purity was supposed to keep Rome safe.
Talk about a scandal, an affair with the god of war. But that's how he got Romulus and Remus.
Yep. And they even called him Mars Pater, like Mars the Father.
Yeah.
It's deeper than just being a war god. He's a father figure to all of Rome.
So he's a protector of fields, a father figure. This guy was busy.
He was.
But let's get into the battles.
Okay.
How did the Roman army actually incorporate Mars?
Oh, they invoked his name constantly, before battles, during, even after.
It's no wonder they named March after him.
It makes sense.
And March is when the fighting season started.
Exactly. Getting Mars on their side was essential.
They were not messing around.
No way. And then there were these rituals they'd do. The Sali priests would,
Wait, hold on, priests.
yes, they put on their armor.
In full armor. Now that's an image.
Right.
Were they like warrior monks or something?
Not quite monks, but they had a very particular role. They do these dances, these elaborate dances.
Send it out.
Oh, yeah. Chanting, banging their spears and shields together, all to get Mars's power flowing, to
Yeah.
win those battles.
So just picture it, a bunch of guys in bronze doing a synchronized routine.
Right.
It's a good thing TikTok wasn't around back then. But seriously, that shows you just how important ritual was to their military.
100%.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about being strong or tough.
There was a whole spiritual side.
They had to be sure the gods were on their side, especially Mars.
Of course, of course. Speaking of, what about Mars Gradavis?
The Strider,
Right, what is that exactly?
he who marches into battle.
That's a title. Can you imagine being a soldier about to face the enemy and hearing that? Talk about chills.
Intense.
Definitely sets the scene. And speaking of scenes, you mentioned something about an inscription about a temple to Mars.
I did.
Tell me more about that.
Okay.
So the Temple of Mars Ultor, yeah. This is a great example of how Mars's image, they weren't afraid to use it for political reasons.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Augustus, he was Rome's first emperor.
Right.
He built this temple, the Temple of Mars Ultor, after he came into power.
Interesting.
And let me tell you, Augustus, he was not about letting things go.
Yeah.
He had to get revenge for Julius Caesar's assassination.
I see where you're going with this.
I mean, come on, that's where Mars comes in.
Exactly.
He's the protector. He's all about Roman honor.
Right. Right.
Augustus, he needed to solidify his power, show everyone who's boss.
Makes sense.
And how do you do that? You get on good terms with the god of vengeance and justice?
It's a bold strategy.
It is. Hence, the Temple of Mars Ultor, which means
Mars the Avenger.
intense. Basically saying, hey, I'm not just some power-hungry dude, you know. This is about divine justice.
It's a good luck.
Totally. And get this, Augustus, he takes it even further.
How so?
Remember the Battle of Carrhae? 53 BC?
Vaguely. Remind me.
The Romans, they got crushed by the Parthians.
Oh, yeah, that one was rough.
Brutal loss. And they lost their standards.
No, not the standards. Those eagle banners, right? The pride of the army.
The ones and only. Huge blow for Rome, not just because of the battle itself, but symbolically, you know?
Absolutely. Losing those is like losing a part of your identity.
Exactly. Well, guess what Augustus managed to do? He gets them back.
No way. From the Parthians.
Straight from the Parthians.
Sure.
And where does he put them? You guessed it, front and center in the Temple of Mars Ultor.
Ooh, that's cold.
Talk about a power move. He's like, don't mess with Rome. Mars has our back, and he does not forgive, and he does not forget.
He's sending a message for sure.
Understatement. You know, it's funny. We started with Mars protecting fields, and now we're talking about, like, empires and vengeance.
It's quite the journey.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. But that's Mars for you. He embodies that Roman thing, achieving peace through strength.
That's the Roman way, isn't it?
It's everywhere you look with them.
Strength, order, security.
But there's another side to this god we haven't even touched on yet.
Oh. What's that?
His love life.
Juicy.
And trust me, this is good. We're talking about Venus, the goddess of love.
Wait, really? Mars and Venus?
The one and only.
And that is a story for the ages. Talk about a study in contrasts.
Right. You've got Mars, all about war, discipline, conquering.
Right, right.
And then there's Venus, all beauty and pleasure.
It's like fire and ice.
Totally. You wouldn't think they'd go together, but...
But opposites attract. Right.
Exactly.
And the Romans ate it up. Love and war entwined. Who can resist that?
It's a classic for a reason. Pops up everywhere. Their art, their poetry.
It's a story that just captures the imagination, you know?
Totally. But it's not all roses and love poems, right?
Oh, absolutely not.
This wasn't exactly a stable relationship.
Think more like volcanic eruptions and whispered promises in the dead of night.
Sounds intense.
Very. And their kids. Let's just say they weren't the most well-adjusted bunch.
Wait, they had kids? I totally forgot about that part.
Oh, yeah. It's classic mythology. Gotta love it. And their kids were like the physical embodiment of their parents' whole deal.
Get out of here. So the little baby gods running around shooting heart-shaped arrows?
Not quite, but close in a way. One of their sons, his name was Timur.
Timur.
Timur, yeah.
Yeah.
He was the god of fear.
Oh, so not great for a dinner party.
And then there was Metis. He was dread.
Oh, so even worse. Fear and dread. Someone get those kids a therapist.
Right. Talk about family therapy sessions from hell.
No kidding. But didn't they have a daughter too, Concordia?
Oh, yeah, Concordia. She was different. The goddess of harmony.
Harmony. Talk about the odd one out.
She sticks out like a sore thumb, right?
Totally. But I kind of love it. Like even Mars, the god of war, he can't escape a little harmony.
It's that balance,
Yeah.
you know?
Mm,
Even in destruction, there's creation. Even in war, there's a desire for peace.
that's deep, man.
It's all there in the myth.
It makes you think. It's like they're saying even a god of war plays a part in keeping things stable.
Exactly. And this is where things get even more interesting. Think about the Greeks.
The Greeks.
They had their own god of war, Ares. How does he compare to Mars?
That is a great question. Because it's not as simple as just swapping the names, right?
Oh, absolutely not. This is what the Romans were so good at. They'd take these gods from other cultures and they'd make them their own.
They put their own spin on things.
Exactly. Now, Ares, he was all over the place. Impulsive, driven by bloodlust, kind of a loose cannon.
Like that one friend you don't want to take to a bar.
Exactly. Mars, on the other hand, he was controlled.
Strategic.
Always. The Romans were all about that discipline, that order, even in the middle of a battle.
Peace through strength, again.
Always. They didn't fight just to fight, you know?
Right.
There had to be a reason, a goal. Establish order, make sure Rome is safe.
So we've got Mars, this complex figure, protector, father, lover, warrior, the whole package. What about the everyday Romans, though? How did they worship him? Giant temples, gladiator fights. What are we talking about?
Oh, they went all out. Remember those spears we talked about? The ones from the Temple of Mars Ultor?
Yeah.
Those weren't just for show, you know?
What do you mean?
They believed that if those spears ever moved, like on their own,
Okay.
that was a sign, a warning, that war was coming.
You're kidding.
Nope. Some people even said they saw those spears shaking right before Julius Caesar was assassinated.
Whoa, seriously. Talk about spooky. Those spears could just, like, move on their own. That's next level stuff.
The Romans, they truly believed in Mars. You know, his presence was everywhere.
I can only imagine. It wasn't just superstitions, though, right? There
Yeah.
were actual honors, ways
Yeah.
to recognize military achievements in his name.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And they weren't messing around. It wasn't like, here's a Mars bobblehead, congrats on the battle.
So what did they do?
They had something way cooler. The spolia opima. You familiar?
Spoliopima. Yeah, I think that rings a bell. I was like, spoils of war, right? Didn't we talk about that before?
Yep. Incredibly rare honor. Only happened 3 times in, like, all of Roman history.
Oh, wow. Okay, so this is big.
Big. A Roman general, to get this honor, he had to kill the enemy commander.
Himself, right.
One-on-one. Single combat. And then he'd take the enemy's armor
Okay.
and dedicate it to Mars.
Talk about a boss move. Only 3 times. That's crazy. It shows you how much they valued military victory, but also how much it was about Mars.
Exactly. It wasn't just about, like, winning a battle. It was way deeper than that.
Right. It was spiritual.
They had to prove Rome was great.
And that Mars was on their side.
100%.
Okay, so we've covered fields of wheat, we've covered trembling spears, we've covered the highest military honors. Is there anywhere Mars doesn't show up in Roman life?
He gets around, that's for sure. And his legacy, it's huge.
It really is. I mean, we're talking about a planet named after him. And Tuesday, that's named after, like, the Norse version of Mars.
Tyr, yeah.
Right, Tyr. But it feels like it goes even deeper than that, you know? It's like he's still with us.
Oh, absolutely. Just think about all those statues of Mars. Strong, powerful, the ideal man, right? That image, it didn't just disappear.
So are you saying that our idea of what's manly, like being strong and assertive, a leader, all that, it's because of Mars?
It's not that simple, obviously. There's a lot of history there.
Yes, of course.
But he's a huge part of it, no doubt. Mars, he was the ideal Roman man.
Yeah.
Brave, disciplined, loyal to Rome. And those values, they stick around.
They get passed down, become part of the culture.
Exactly. Art, literature, how people see themselves, it's all connected.
Wow, it's like this ripple effect, you know? Mars throws a stone into the pool, and we're still feeling those ripples today.
That's a great way to put it.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it, how these ancient stories, these myths, they still resonate with us.
They never really go away, do they?
Definitely not. And speaking of resonating, what about the planet Mars? Named after the god of war, and now we're talking about it as a potential second home for humanity.
Kind of ironic, right? It really is. And that red color, that blood red we associate with the planet, that just cemented the connection to the god of war.
Yeah. Like, what else could it be, right? That's got to be Mars.
Exactly. But it goes deeper than that. Because even though the Roman Empire is long gone, when they named that planet Mars, it kept that memory alive.
He's immortalized in the night sky.
Exactly.
So to sum it all up, the planet named after the god of war might be where humans make their fresh start.
The irony is not lost on me.
Definitely makes you think. Are we just doomed to repeat history? Or can we learn from the Romans? Can we break the cycle?
Big questions, and I don't have the answers.
Me neither. But it's something to think about as we explore the cosmos, as we grapple with these ancient stories.
They have a lot to teach us, if we're willing to listen.
That's the truth. Well, on that note, we'll leave our listeners to ponder the legacy of Mars. What does it all mean for our future here and out there in the stars? It's a lot to unpack.
There's always more to explore.
That's what we're here for. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking those big questions, and never underestimate a good deep dive.
See you next time.
Take care.